meeting has been properly notified, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will begin with the hearing of visitors or delegations, and so we have two people who have registered their intent to address the board this evening, and we will begin with Lily Ersman, please. So when you come up, please, even though I have your name here, please introduce yourself, and then you have 2 minutes to address the board.
Okay. Hello, my name is Lily Ersman, and I'm a recent graduate from River Falls High School. For this school year, I worked as a para at Greenwood Elementary. As both a student and an employee of the district, I have been able to experience the Wildcat Way through both the eyes of a learner and now the eyes of a teacher. As an avid reader and learner, libraries mean a great deal to me, and that is why I'm here. There has been recent discussion and controversy about what happens in our libraries. I believe that I can offer a unique perspective. As an employee of the district, I have been able to reconnect with our district libraries. This opportunity has taught me so much about what it takes to educate and support our young students. I am also proud to say that I have found a role model in Erin Desbouget, our librarian, not just to the students, but to myself as a young learner navigating my post-secondary life. Every morning, I spend an hour minimum in the library. This hour is truly the best part of my day. I get to connect with students through a shared love of books, reading, and literacy in a space dedicated to the educational and personal advancements of our students. Every day I watch students begin to grow the skills I used every day in high school, skills that I use now as an adult, and skills I know I will use next year when I attend college. Skills such as research techniques, coding, communication, and critical thinking skills developed through reading and analyzing text. My favorite aspect of this hour is watching as students demonstrate their character in a short 30-minute period. Students show curiosity and independence as they choose what books they're interested in. They show responsibility and respect as they handle the library books and resources by making sure they are handled with care and returned on time. They show cooperation and perseverance as they navigate difficult tasks such as coding or learning how a library is organized. Time not spent with students is time spent making sure that our library is the best it can be. This includes constant revision on what books are in the library, what could be added, and what can be removed. Having observed and participated in this process, I can ensure that the library specialists and support staff take meticulous care in ensuring that all books that come in are safe, educational, and appropriate for our students. We ensure that the library is a dynamic
right now, so hopefully we'll get a few more in before we hit August, late August. They're also working on the Ames Web screening. We have 2 subtests that we have to do, initial sounds and learning our letter word sounds fluency. And those went pretty good. We're working on summer school registration. Summer school for 4K is considered kindergarten for summer school, and we do allow children in by recommendation by the teachers for the kindergarten part of it. And then we're also working on the general ed 4K preschool screener, and that's for all incoming 4K kiddos coming into 4K next year. So that's what we really want to focus on talking about today is the screener. So the screener, what is the screener? It's just a quick check on the child's development, where they are developmentally for their age, looking at academics and speech and hearing and vision.
We do motor skills, so all of the 4K teachers in the district take one student for like a half-hour slot. We walk them around, we do some play things with them just so we can see how they are developed and if there's anything that we need to further look into. So it's just a nice little snapshot. We get to take a look at them and just see how they are doing.
The purpose of the screener for us is just some early identification for any concerns we might see. This is our second school year doing this. We started doing it last year. 3 years ago, we noticed that some of the kiddos that we had coming into 4K weren't on our radar and weren't really placed in the appropriate place because we hadn't seen them or known them at all, so we thought we were gonna bring back the screener. I think in the district, we used to have it many years ago. I remember my kids going to a screener too. So we're bringing it back, and we're also giving families a chance to connect with resources that we might have. Planning for school readiness and monitoring the child development as where they're at now and where they are maybe after the summer, because sometimes there's a lot of growth just over the summer, so we want to track that. And it also helps us start a partnership with the parents for those that haven't even been in the school district yet. So some of them are in the district right now in the early childhood, but that's just a handful of them. So the majority of them we don't get to see right away, so.
It's nice for the kids and the parents to be able to see faces of who might their teacher be and just kind of get used to what it's like to be without mom and dad for a little bit, so.
So the overview of our process with marketing and registration, we try to get it out there as much as we can on Facebook, on the district webpage, word of mouth. We have a lot of our kiddos that are coming up into 4K already at some of our partner sites that are in childcare, so we get the word out that way as well. Getting them to register, we ask that they also do ages and stages screeners, which is another form of data that we collect, and it's something, 2 screeners that the parents do. One is ASQ3, and that covers communication, gross motor, fine motor, problem solving, and personal social. And the parent typically does that with their children, ask them questions and have them draw a picture and write their name and things like that. The other one is a social emotional screener, so we have all areas are covered in the 2 screeners that we have the parents fill out. So that's another form of data that we collect. The sessions are 30 minutes long, so we kind of have a whirlwind going through. We're checking their vision, we're checking their vision, their hearing, their speech. We're checking their fine motor, their gross motor, their social skills, because we have 8 to 9 students down checking at the same time, so we can see how they interact with other children or how they separate from their parents, things like that. Anything else on that?
The more information we can get is great to have, because this is typically their first experience with school, so it's just a great thing for the teachers to have. All the information we can get is just better for us to be able to, get that learning for them.
So the kids are down, we do this at the River Falls Public Library, so we partner with them and collaborate with them. They go downstairs in the basement, we have all the activities down in the basement, the parents are separated from their child. They're in a parent info session with me, and I go through what the preschooler screener is, why we do it, what's happening with their child down in the basement. I talk about the Jump Start bag that we are going to give them, and then also an exit interview. The Jump Start bag is just a bag of goodies that we give each child. It has a book in it. We also have a book in the basement for a little incentive for the kiddo when they get done with their activities and stuff, they get to pick a book. So they get a couple of books. We put some Play-Doh in there, a Play-Doh cutter thing, so they're using their fine motor, because that's so important at this age. We have some other information. I have a list.
We have name cards we put in there, so it's laminated. We could give them a little whiteboard marker so they can practice tracing and writing their names.
Yeah, there's some reading tips in there, some writing tips, there's readiness checklist. There's some things to do for the summer, there's a couple recipes to try that are picture recipes, so the child can help with cooking and follow along as you add the ingredients and mix and stuff. We have a June, July, and August calendar of 5 to 10 minute activities per day that the families can do together, to a scavenger hunt, and some information about social emotional learning too, and activities. A lot of good stuff just inside the Jump Start bag. And then the exit interview, the last bullet on the last one. The exit interview is with the school psychologist, so every parent talks with the school psychologist. From the data that we collected as we went through that quick 30 minutes of stuff, and if there's any concerns, we can talk about it with the parent really quick and do some follow-up or have recommendations for them. All right, so collaborating, we collaborated obviously with the public library to help with all reservations in the rooms and stuff. We used pretty much the whole basement, part of the upstairs for the screener. We have paraprofessionals that come help facilitate with registration and check-in. And then each 4K teacher takes a child down, works with them one-on-one, going through the stations. Speech and language pathologists there screen for speech and hearing with their machine. I don't remember what it's called.
Audiometer, I think.
Where's Mark? What's it called?
Headphones.
I can never remember how to say it.
Most makeup
Oh,
words.
I just, yeah. It is, it's kind of like a made-up. Yeah, the vision check is done by the Lions Club. They have a, go next one. They have like a little gun that kind of sounds like a little bird, has a little tweety sound. It takes about 3 seconds, and kids' eyes are checked. Occupational therapists and early childhood special ed teachers are there monitoring and observing kiddos if they spot something that kind of gets them alerted for any kiddo that might have some concerns that we need to address later. We have college students coming, helping with the stations, keeping them.
Keep us flowing, keep us moving, because sometimes it's hard to get students or kiddos away from certain spots, so.
Yeah, sometimes it gets disorganized in the 30-minute shuffle, so they're
It's
help
fast.
keeping that, yeah. And then I guess the school psychologists conclude with the exit interview. The data that we collect, so we keep track of those kiddos that we're gonna follow up with in the fall for another speech test. If the speech is bad enough to start a referral or evaluation at that point, we've done that before, but most of them will be rechecked in the fall. There's some that will recheck with hearing in the fall. We'll recommend that the parents see a pediatrician to check with the hearing, see if there's something, clogging their ear that might have affected their score on the hearing machine. And the ASQs we keep track of and use that data too. What else?
Those help to do an individualized, like, education plan for all of the kiddos, just to kind of see where they need to go. It's really nice to have the speech and the hearing there, just because those are some things that often get missed, and so it's nice to have that there, at least to have someone listen, so.
What's an ASQ?
It's Ages and Stages Screener. It's the one that the parents do. The one that has communication, gross motor, fine motor, personal space, and communication.
The parents fill that out?
The parents fill those
And then are
out.
the kids being screened, are they going into 4K or getting out of 4K?
They're going into 4K.
So these are pre-4K kids.
Yeah.
And how young, I know, doesn't the school district take accountability for child development from 3 and on? How young do we reach out to parents to bring them in to have children evaluated?
So these ones are screened, they have to be 4 by September 1, so these ones have to be.
Okay.
So they're not, maybe some of them aren't quite 4 yet, but
Yep.
they're into that
They
age.
will be 4 by September 1st.
Yep,
Yes.
yep,
Okay, good.
yep.
I know that the district does do, the special ed
Yep.
department
We
does
have a
do.
3-year-old screening that we also do as well.
Okay.
Nice.
But it didn't just, it didn't include a lot of kids.
This is mass screening.
Yes.
This is, we want every incoming 4K to do it.
And do we know, are you going to get to it, what percentage we're hitting?
We're hitting about 80%
Oh, good.
of the registration right now,
Good.
yeah.
What about the other 20%?
Yeah.
Well, the other 20% are probably not able to get a day off work to bring their child, something like that. So we're either getting information from the childcare centers that have these kiddos in, if they're not registered, I reach out to the directors and say, You know, do you feel like this child needs to come to the screener for some reason, or are they okay? Are they doing okay? Are they at developmental level?
Those ages and stages questionnaires help a lot too, if they're not able to come to the screener.
They are
Those
a
answer
tell.
a lot. It's
Yeah.
quite a bit
They
for
are a
parents to do,
tell.
but it's a great
Yeah.
piece of information to have,
It
so.
helps you catch children
Yeah,
who
it does.
need special attention.
I really like this. This is good. And it hits a variety of things. One is, I like the idea that we're screening because 3, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, those are just numbers, right? They're just numbers. Because you hit 3 doesn't mean anything magically happens. It's just a benchmark for us. So actually doing some evaluation and screening here it seems to me to do a variety of things. One is, helps us figure out, are the kids ready or not, and helps us begin to plan for them. But it's also, I'm hearing you tell me, it engages the parents, because especially young parents or first-time parents, this is all really new, so is my kid ready or not? And some parents will have a real strong feeling about that. Some are really going to be looking for guidance. And you're looking at more than just academic or behavioral stuff. I hear you talking about hearing, speech, eyesight, variety of things out there that are really good. And again, it's great when the parents can be engaged in this, so they're part of that to get them started. And then on National Library Day, I'm glad that you're doing this in the library and you're giving them a book, because literacy is obviously a real important part of this, and I think to just get them comfortable if they're not already comfortable being in the library. So I like all of those kinds of things. I do think one of the things, I actually shared an article, I think out, I don't know if it went out to the board yet or not. It's an article in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel today about differences between male and female suicides, and especially with young people. And it's so obvious, it's one more piece, that boys and girls aren't at the same stage as they're moving through, and big differences gender-wise. And I always raise this because boys are typically slower and all of that. So if we have a one-size-fits-all, it's not doing what we need to be doing. So there are all these kinds of things that I trust the staff, because you guys know what you're doing, are taken care of. And I think that helps our district, certainly helps these kids and the parents especially. But as Stacy mentioned, we, as a board, we typically ask, so who's not there? Because it's often those parents who may need the most help, or those kids who aren't there.
Yeah.
So we would ask, just rhetorically, don't need an answer today, but what kind of help do you need to make sure that we're tracking down every kid to make sure that they don't get left behind in that initial screening? Because if they get missed an initial screening, are they kind of behind in some other things? So
We ask that as teachers as well. Who are we missing? Why are we missing them? How can we get them involved? This has been a topic that we've talked about for years. I've been here since the first year of RF4C, and we've always just wondered. So it's something we always talk about too. So any help you can give us would be great, because we want to catch everyone.
Yeah, do we reach out to all the churches in the area to have them share with their parishioners that this is available?
Oh, I could do that.
And then the only other thought I had is, I don't know when's the library getting remodeled, and is it gonna get in the way of your program?
Our second
think
and
it'll-
last screener is on Friday,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, okay.
So
I
it's
think
not-
we
it'll
already
be a
did
gap,
one.
because
Yeah.
that work has to happen pretty quick.
Yeah.
So I think by
By September of '26, I believe, to have that done
Yeah.
with the funds.
there might be one, but we'll have plenty of lead time to, if we need an alternative location.
We're very especially appreciative to have the people from the Student Services Department helping us too. All the early childhood special ed teachers and the speech teachers and the OT and the PT. And it's just great to have their eyes on these little kiddos too. You know, when they're out in our partner sites, to get them there can be hard, just to come and do an observation at all. So yeah, we're appreciative that they're such a great help to us on that side.
This work is so important. And I have a question, though, about the information that you are gathering in the screeners or through all of these screening events about individual children. How do they match the characteristics of that individual child that we see when they come in? Are we catching the things that we need to catch?
We're catching the majority of it. The
Yeah.
ASQs can be a tell if sometimes it can be a tell. The fine motor part of the ASQ3 is always low, only because that's something that they're really behind on at that age anyway. They're just developing those fine motor muscles, so that's something that we know we need to work on with all those kiddos. The other information, the speech information that we get is pretty accurate. We have 4 speech teachers there that are listening to those kiddos, so.
I think it's great. I mean, I use those ASQs a lot, but now with this added screener, which we were all pushing to have, it's just huge. It's, even if you don't know if the child's in your class, in April, we don't know who our classes are yet. It's just good to see those kiddos. If there's any that stick out, we know. If there's any that, are sad to leave mom, we know. It's nice just to see. It's just nice to see as the teacher's doing it. It's just good to have that extra time with them. You can look at the paperwork ASQ, but you can also meet the child. It's 2 different things, right? Meeting them in person or looking at the paperwork. So we have kind of both of that, right? So we do both, and I think it's just a great thing. It's a great way to meet them and get to know them, so.
Well, thank you for your work and for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to move on to reports, and the first one is Addie with a student report.
Yeah, I'm just gonna talk about some updates for the high school. Prom week is this week, and the prom committee is getting everyone excited with a week full of themed dress-up days to prepare for the dance on Saturday. And last week, juniors and seniors participated in a give back day to give back to the community. And this included cleaning up the community, giving back to local facilities such as the Comforts of Home, and writing thank you letters to service members. And then finally, the senior give back events are continuing to take place to help support the senior party, which is on May 30th.
All right.
So Addie has probably one more meeting with
Yeah,
us.
meeting, yeah.
I mean, you can
in
come
May.
in June.
Well, we'll talk about that in May. So, well, it looks like maybe we will even have warm weather for prom this year. Sometimes it's been cold, so it might be nice.
Yes.
So, thank you very much. Okay, administrator reports, and we have Mark Inouye, who is going to talk about his student services goal.
All right, fantastic. I don't have to lower a mic now to
No.
adjust my massive height. It's fantastic. This is just an opportunity for me to give you a mid-year review of my wig. But before I get to that, even though Becky and Aaron already left, I just want to give them another shout out. Despite what they kind of went with like a low-key, oh, this is just what we do. This is a massive undertaking. I mean, it's the amount of students that are getting scheduled and coming in. The amount of staff that give up huge chunks of their time to do this. Kudos to them for getting this done. It's really, really important work. For example, we had 7 students who flagged as failing the vision test this year. These are 7 kids who are now at least getting into the doctor to get their vision evaluated so they can hit the ground running as 4K students with good vision. So again, this is really important work, and shout out to the school psychs and the SLPs and the 4K teachers and the early childhood team. Just great work. So with that said, kind of on to the wig. These first 2 slides are the ones that you saw in the fall. Just kind of a review of what the wig was, which is essentially that 80% of our students will have above average growth based on that student growth percentile of 65 or greater from fall to spring. And then the second slide is really just how we initially kind of selected that goal. Again, a very aggressive goal, but one that we thought that over the next 3 years we would meet or get really close to. So those first 2 slides are really a review. On to kind of where we are mid-year. So this is where our data shows right now. So I have a couple of different columns there based on a couple of different measures. Now you can see that there's a lot of different measures over on the left. So we use Ames Web for grades K through 3. We flip over to Frastbridge for grades 4 and 5, and then we move on to STAR for the high school. What is consistent is that in all cases, we're using what's called the student growth percentile to get an idea of what their growth looks like compared to national norms. A student growth percentile of 50 means that they're growing at exactly the average amount based on kind of where we would expect the student given their starting score. SGPs of higher than 50 mean that they're growing at a faster rate. SGPs of below 50 mean they're growing at a slower rate. So that's kind of that first column there is kind of what their average SGP is for all the students who were assessed. And then kind of based on what the WIG goal is, I divided into the percentage of the students who are showing high growth, again an SGP of 65 or higher, that average growth, which is between 35 and 65, and then lower growth, which is 35 or below. And you can see kind of where the numbers are there. You can see that it's kind of that high growth area. We're somewhere in the kind of, depending on the area, in most areas between kind of 40 to 50 range. Kind of that letter naming kindergarten was a little bit on the lower side comparatively, but the letter sound in kindergarten was a little stronger when we look at some of those kindergarten numbers. Definitely something that we're going to need to analyze a little bit more. It is the case that we really haven't had the opportunity to really look at this data as an elementary team because a lot of these SGP numbers have just came out given the recent spring assessment. So we're still working on that. Middle school and high school have had some mid-year data meetings because we've had fall data, winter data, and then we're going to be getting spring data here coming up. So again, this is just kind of our mid-year data. When I come back to you in June, we should have kind of more fully fledged out data to kind of get a better picture of kind of where we are.
Say, Mark, just before you leave that, so what determines that we're using Ames, Fastbridge, and STAR? Is that mandated by the state or is that our choice?
So a couple different things. The Ames right now is mandated by the state. So we have to do the early literacy screener in those areas based on kind of what the state requirements are with that. They selected their measure. We didn't have a choice. We had to roll with it. This year we have kind of stuck with Fastbridge and 4-5, and then we kind of flip over to STAR when it comes to the high school. We have a little bit more choice when it comes to the fourth and fifth grade, and then the middle school and high school.
And we're okay, we've identified peer institutions for us to benchmark at those levels, since it's not statewide on Fastbridge and STAR.
Yeah, so Fastbridge and STAR, for example, are used fairly consistently across the country. So we have national norms in those areas to kind of benchmark us against kind of where the rest of the nation is. So a couple of things as we look at that data. SGP data is based on, at least the one that I just showed, is based on a combination of a couple of different things. We've got some of those groups are looking at, fall to winter because we haven't done spring yet. Some of those groups are, fall to or spring to winter. Some of those groups are winter to spring. So we've got a variety of different components, which is why I think when I come back in June, we're going to have more comparable data when it comes to how this all looks. There are some areas that we have a really small sample size. So again, when we have really small sample sizes, we just have to be a little careful as far as kind of how we interpret that data until we have kind of a robust amount of data. We are using different screening tools, but as I mentioned before, with the SGP, it does allow us to kind of do a little bit of apples to oranges comparisons, kind of based on that piece of data there. Again, I mentioned this in the fall as well. We're really working hard to try to get our students to take this assessment seriously, because if we're having a bunch of students that are kind of clicking through, it's going to skew our data, and then it's not going to be as helpful to us when we're evaluating our practices. So I think that's really important as well. And then finally, this is kind of what I would call our initial baseline. So we don't want to take this initial data and then overreact based on one set of data. We want to kind of take a little while and see kind of what some historical patterns might emerge before we make some abrupt changes. So that's going to be really important as well. We also want to analyze the data a little more in depth to get an idea. Okay, so yeah, we have all of the middle school that just took this assessment, but how do our students who might have been in pull-out reading compare to those that were pushed into core instruction? How does it compare to students who were in core instruction with a paraprofessional versus a co-taught section? All those things are things that we can do a little more analysis on as we get a little further into the review. Again, just kind of some lead measures we're committing to. As I mentioned in the fall, again, I selected this WIG, or we selected this WIG, so that it wasn't like an extra thing that special ed was doing, but it was something they could layer on to kind of what they're already doing in their buildings. So things that the elementary and the high school and the middle school are currently doing should really roll right into this WIG as far as their improvements as well. The things like focusing on PLCs, the reading responses at the high school, the focus on common informative assessment at the middle school, all play into the improvement that we want to see for our students. The commitment to monthly job-alike PLCs at the elementary, again, is something that we continue to work on. I think 6 out of 7 months we've had some sort of meeting, either during a late start or a professional development day. And then middle school has been meeting in job-alike groups as well. A little less structured than some of our other meetings, but something that we want to continue to work on there. And then again, ongoing evaluation of specially designed instruction, our interventions and our delivery models to again get an idea of kind of what seems to be working best when we look to try to get our students to grow. And I kind of mentioned some of this as well. I think one big thing as we continue to move forward is really kind of making this just a part of what we do instead of something that Inouye says we have to do during the January PD day. So having a regular schedule of, hey, fall, winter, and spring, we're going to just put it on the calendar. So we're going to look at this data. We've got a common protocol that we're going to start using. So getting into the point where this is just what we do is going to be really important. As part of that, having ways to get, user-friendly reports of EduClimb or some of our other data pieces, and then having those conversations about what is working based on real data. So that's what I got. Any questions?
We've been talking a lot about special ed the last 4 weeks here, as we've talked about budget and staffing and all those kinds of things, Mark. And this area is so critical. One of the things that sticks in my mind is we haven't had an overall enrollment in the district, but we've had an increase of 80 students? 75 students who need an increase in that this year, which.
Over 5 years.
Yeah, over 5.
Over 5.
Not in 1 year.
Over 5 years, okay.
Over 5, so over the last 5 years, we've seen an increase of special education students identified with a disability. That number has increased by 75 students. At the same time, our other enrollment has remained relatively flat.
Right. Which
And
is why.
within that as well, I would say also, we're seeing from the early childhood team in particular that we're seeing a lot more students with more significant needs. It used to be that we had a lot of students with, kind of mild needs, but we're seeing more students who have heavier needs for support.
So it's different from a staffing standpoint. It's not like we just got, over the last 5 years, 75 more fifth graders, and we can hire a couple more fifth grade teachers to do that. These are spread across grades, so we're actually having to add some staff and rearrange some staffing, even though there's not an overall increase in the district, because we've got an increase in need here, which is why our highest priority, I think, almost every school district in the state with the legislature is get an increase in special ed support for us as a district, and I think that's critical for us. So all the more reason why we're interested in hearing what you're doing here. We're comfortable and want to know with what you're doing and want to know how we can be supportive. We talked about this at the personnel committee the other night of, I think Nate presented at the time, we had 19 vacancies, and I think 6 of them are special ed related vacancies right now. So this is a real critical area for us to be hiring in right now. And we're hiring a disproportionately high number from a pool that's very small compared to some other areas. So all the more reason for a good, structured, supportive program, not just for our students, but for the new staff who come in and all of that. But it's an important thing for our district, and it's really been a focus of ours the last few weeks. And so I appreciate hearing this tonight.
And Nate's not here, but just a shout out to Nate. We have had probably our strongest applicant pool in special ed in years. I've been doing this for a long time, and part of it is, I think, starting early, but I think part of it is those recruitment videos and just the culture that this board has helped create in this district. We have had, I had a sizably larger number of applicants in a couple of key positions than I ever have before in my 13 years doing this. And so just really excited about the quality of individuals that we've been able to hire so far.
I think, Mark, that that's also a reflection of the fact that the teachers in special education feel very supported by you and by the structure that you've created.
great.
And I can even see that here, because you're talking about looking at student growth systematically, not just every so often, but you're doing it in very systematic ways, which I think all of this ties together. So thank you for being here, and thank you for your work. Any other comments? All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, the superintendent report.
Just make clear there.
More still supposed to
Yeah.
Okay, there might be some truth.
So the superintendent report is focused on volunteers. So it happens to be volunteer recognition week, which I know if you dig hard enough, you can find a recognition for anything. But this week is a really awesome one to look at. And so we kind of zeroed in on how school volunteers play a role in supporting our schools. And it's vast. It's vast on how our volunteers do it. And one big thing that they do is they play a key role in connecting schools to the community. And it, kind of the overall mission of it is to foster connections between families, community members, and schools, and provide an opportunity to enrich classrooms by having parents and community members share their time, skills, and talents with students. And that to me, that's the key piece, right? Our parents, our community members have lots of skills and talents, and they give of their time to support our students, and I know that process is greatly appreciated. So some data points. So we have a district-wide volunteer coordinator, and her job is to kind of play that facilitator, right? Find need and outreach to community and parents to see if they can reach that need. And so she has been able to cultivate a list of 827 approved volunteers, and they've provided supports for 75 different events. And we put a little asterisk there because that probably, we know that doesn't encompass all the times our families volunteer, especially parents, because sometimes those things are done outside of the coordinated events by Leslie. But everyone who does volunteer is an approved volunteer, so there's a very specific process by which we go through to make sure that volunteers are the people that we want with our kids. So a couple examples there. The picture on the left hand there is somebody who is helping with the chess club at the elementary school, and then on the right, that's a larger event, volunteer event, where we have many people from our community completing senior exit interviews. So those are some of our showcase events, one of our showcase events. So volunteers do a lot more than just kind of show up. They plan, they organize, they supervise, they lead, and this is a bulleted list of some of the awesome things that we do. So Addie mentioned facilitating service learning. We had volunteers supporting that last week for the high school. There's really meaningful academic supports through tutoring. Support of book fairs that the library media specialists organize, and I know they couldn't do without them. And then again, time and talent, so whether that's assisting with marching band or reading in classrooms or guiding art projects or bringing what their professional experience is into the high school is another really awesome example of that. And I shouldn't just qualify that to the high school, all our levels as well. So we want to make the process for people who are interested in volunteering pretty easy and transparent, but we also want to make sure that we have a safe and effective experience for everybody involved. So there's a link there, so if anybody listening or anyone who expresses an interest can follow to see what it means to sign up to be a volunteer. And like I said, that could be, hey, I love doing book fairs, that sounds super fun, or Popcorn Fridays, which are really fun at the elementary schools if you're into popcorn. All those things are pretty awesome too. So, and then I would also want to recognize that I mentioned the volunteer coordinator. That's a key role in this, but there's other people that really outreach and facilitate the fact that we can have our volunteers feel good about what they're doing within the school. And just like a lot of things, our school secretaries are critical linchpins or pieces to that puzzle. They're in the know. They know families. They're aware of things. So when there's a need that comes up, that's kind of a person that you look to, as well as teachers and paraprofessionals. They also play big roles in that. So just wanted to take a minute to recognize the volunteers. We have some things planned for this week to do that as well, to make sure that we honor and respect that time. So that's one piece. The other piece I just wanted to mention, and we will, this is more of a preview. We send out, this time of year, we send out staff feedback surveys from all of our stakeholders. So we've done the staff and the parent feedback surveys. We've pushed that out to those stakeholder groups, and we'll have a period of time, and we'll send some friendly reminders. We ask a whole bunch of different questions. Some of it aligns to the strategic plan, and then we'll take that as another data point in addition to some of the academic data that we use. Some of it is about more behavioral things and vision type things. And so we really just are asking to make sure that our staff and our parents fill that out, because that's the period of time when they can do it. And then, in addition to that, a little bit later, we'll have an opportunity for our students in grades 4 through 12 to also participate in that feedback survey. So just want to put a little plug in for that, and then we will at this meeting, at a school board meeting, as well as the admin team, kind of take a chance to go through all that data. Thank you.
Thank you. The volunteers make a big difference in our school. It's terrific. All right, the election report is usually done by the clerk, but I'm going to do it today. And that is to congratulate Lindsay Curtis and Mike Miller on being reelected to new 3-year terms for the school board. So wonderful, thank you.
Congratulations.
Well-run campaign, both of you. by the way.
Hers better than mine. By about 41.
But who's counting?
Right.
So we will move on to action items. And before the board this evening, we have the meeting minutes from the regular board meeting on March 24th. We have minutes from the special school board meeting on April 7th. We also have bills that have been submitted for payment, as well as employment recommendations. So at this moment, is there a motion to approve the minutes, bills, and employment as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Allison. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lindsay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. We are going to move on to a report from Ellen and the Educational Program Committee.
Okay, the Ed Programs Committee met on Monday, April 7th, and went several things, but most of them dealt with some policy changes. And I'll mention them specifically here and then say what's going to happen, because typically, as we approve things and move them through the committee, they come to the full board for action. And tonight, we're going to actually send these back to committee again for some further conversation. They have to deal with policy 361.2, which is the selection of library media materials, and then policy 361.2 rule, which explains the procedures for the selection, reporting, parent involvement, access, et cetera, for library materials. And then policy 361.1, which deals with criteria, guidelines for selecting and acquiring instructional materials for the district. There's a lot of interest in this, and we had some really good conversation that Monday night in committee about it, and we raised enough questions to where there's sort of this sense that maybe we aren't quite where we want to be yet in terms of, does everybody on the board understand where we're at? Does the staff get the policy? Because one thing to have a policy, it's another thing to make sure that all the staff understand and how we're doing it and implementing it, and parents and others along the way. So I think that this is just another opportunity for us as a board. There's no big rush on this, so no reason why we can't take this up at the next committee meeting and work through this. So at this point, we won't have a report out on that or action on this. We're going to go back and talk about it again next month at our meeting, and then at that point, probably advance it, and it may change a little bit more, it may not change some more, probably not change some more, but we need some more discussion about what are the implications of this, and how are we going to implement it, so.
Yeah, I think Mary Beth, Amy, and I, and the library media specialist team is just looking forward to that opportunity to dig in a little bit deeper, and specifically in the areas of selection of materials, curation of the materials, and then strategies to engage parents in their child's reading selections. I think there's a lot that we talked about, and it's a robust topic, right? So you talk about it, and there's other pieces that come up, and I think it would be a good opportunity and a wise opportunity to dig into that and spend some time, and whether it's Amy and Mary Beth or whether it's members of the library media specialist team sharing how that will be either, whether there's big changes to how we're doing things now or not really big changes. I think just seeing it in action in a little more detail, it gives us a chance to do that. And I think it's just a wise thing to spend some time digging and make sure we're in a good spot before we bring it to the full board for the first read.
So the focus will be on the implementation of
Yep.
those, of how they're written, okay?
And then our next meeting will be May 2nd,
No,
excuse me, May 5th.
yes.
Well, 5 and 2 were kind of alike.
I had a second there.
All right, so it was a short summary of a long meeting.
Yes, sure, very long. Which is what we have those committee meetings for, is
That's
so we
right.
can shake this stuff out.
All right, Mike was unable to be at the Finance and Facilities Committee, so Allison chaired, and Allison is going to give us the update.
Sure. Finance and Facilities Committee met on Monday, April 14th. We had multiple items on the agenda. The first, and Lynette chiming in here anywhere you would like to add something. The first thing we discussed was the facilities project update, and things are moving along well with the update. The high school project's moving along. The facility project over at the bus garage has hit a little bit of glitch with the prefab, right? That's what I'm talking about.
Precast is how we-
Precast.
yep.
The precast concrete, they raised the ceilings, and then the holes in the precast got put in not quite the exact right place. And there's lots of requirements of where these things have to be, how far off the floor outlets can be and whatnot. So that precast has to be redone, not at our expense, but it will slow the project down slightly, but they're hopeful they can catch up. right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and not all of them need to come down. There's 10 panels
10 panels need to come down.
replaced. Yep.
Wouldn't you know?
But they've been great partners in terms of
Yeah.
They're taking
Yes.
care of it.
No
Yes.
expense to the district for that.
Exactly.
Great. The next item was the budget update. Things are on track for this year's budget. Were there anything specific, Lynette, that we wanted to point out? Things are tracking where we anticipated them.
Yes, but we're in a good place with our budget. We'll continue to track that through the end of the year, already doing some projections on where we'll end up. Pointed out a few things. I think namely, kind of the one thing of interest was the commodities, the cash in lieu of commodities and Fund 50 is kind of unique to River Falls. Otherwise, yeah, we'll see some updates to the budget as we get through the end of the year. So.
Yeah, it's happening. The next item was school meal prices. You have a separate document on that, but the meal prices run under $2 for breakfast across the board, and then lunches right around $3 at all levels, a little under at the elementary level and a little bit over $3. The recommendation from the committee after discussion was to raise those prices, some 5 cents, some 10 cents, so slight increases in them, but that's about what they run. Little under $2 for breakfast and right around $3 for lunch. We have good participation. Milk is staying at the same price. And that was that an action item?
It will,
Do we need
Yes,
to?
it will be.
we'll do it after your report.
After, okay, we'll do that. Okay, then we talked about Board Docs platform and Neola policy services discussion. And in a nutshell, everyone has witnessed this board going through policy after policy after policy after policy. Many districts use a service that provides content and template kind of information that helps you draft an excellent policy, make sure you don't forget things in your consideration, updates on all the latest legal requirements related to policy development. And the administrative team is looking at a service such as like that. WASB offers a service like that. Neola offers this service. The cost, I'm from the conversation, I'm going to say Neola was the preferred one to be looking at. And the cost is about $17,000 to get launched on it, and then there's a fee every year. So it's a one-time fee of about $17,000. So the administrative team is still discussing that. No decision was made at this point.
Couple of points, questions were raised. One about making sure that, because one of the pros of this is it'll make our policies easier to and more accessible for employees, but then also community members because they're searchable and just in a format that's maybe a little bit more user-friendly than Docs, but then Google Docs is what we use now. But we want to make sure, because there's some transitions with the companies that are going on there, that we're being told it will be executed. So I have a meeting tomorrow with a rep from Neola. I'm also reaching out to WASB to get some more information. There was a question about archiving policies. And then some other questions around the timeliness. I think that's the biggest thing for this board is we want to have the support that is not just the templates, but also drafting support and then state level and federal level legal support. But we don't want to lose the fact that we're the board, you are the
We
board.
own the policies.
And those policies then should reflect River Falls School District values. And they've explained to us in many different ways how we can do that and leverage that, but before we make this investment, we want to make sure we do that. And just a piece, about 75% of Wisconsin school districts use Neola. The other almost 25% use WASB. We're one of very few districts that doesn't have anything like that.
Yeah, interesting.
And so that's why it's being brought forth. No action right now. The action we will bring some more information at the next FNF meeting, and then the action would be at the next full board meeting.
Yeah,
And some of the cost, we would be eliminating some of the cost from having attorneys review it that would be wrapped into the total expense of Neola. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
Right, right. I've seen these used in a lot of different places, and it is nice because it adds a level of consistency to the policy, because if you get this person developing a policy in this department, this person over here, the writing style is going to be different, the language they use. They also look at them for readability for the general public, which is very nice. So it can be a really good thing. Any other thoughts on that, or we're good? So it's
I
under
think that
discussion.
if memory serves, we had a conversation about Neola also being a really good, preferable option for the administration because there was access to specific people who could advise and guide in the way that maybe another service wouldn't. So if people in the community are looking at the numbers or wondering, again, why this investment might be a good thing, I think having the specific contact with a person who remains the same and gets to know us, I thought that was a really important part of what we were looking at.
Yeah.
And covered under this price.
Yep, good point, Monica, thank you. As I'm recalling, there were no suggested items for a future meeting, correct? And then our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 12th.
Perfect. Would you like to make a motion about this meal prices?
I would make a motion that we approve the adjusted school meal prices as presented for the 25-26 school year.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second that.
Thanks, Bo. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. All right, the Personnel Committee met on April 14th, and during that meeting, the first thing we did was to hear an update about the district scorecard. That's just to keep in mind, that's not the same as the district report card. The scorecard is the way that we are keeping track of our progress towards our district goals. And so the goals we are talking about here belong to Nate in the Human Resource Department. So he provided an update. We also heard a 25-26 staffing update, which we will keep seeing that as the year draws to an end as we're preparing for the upcoming academic year. We also then approved sending letters of intent for our certified staff. That's an annual responsibility that we extend to all certified staff members in the committee, in the district. And we went into closed session to discuss 2025-26 contract negotiation goals and to approve final notice of non-renewal for a certified staff member. So I will move that we approve sending letters of intent to all certified staff. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ellen. Any questions or comments?
That was a really good letter. I mean, it's important because sometimes it's kind of been a little too form letter-ish. This was I think it was well.
You'll see that on page 30, well, our report started in 34. We have tried to do that over the years, to be personalizing each one of these letters that go out to our people. So thank you for that. Okay, did we vote? No, we did not. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. And now is there a motion to approve sending a final notice of non-renewal to a certified staff member?
So moved.
Thank you. Lindsay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ellen. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Okay, I am going to turn to you, Dave, to walk us through these 3 policies that are coming before the board for first readings.
I have it right here.
I was actually ready this time.
There you go. Hopefully people can see this, and you board members have it in the front. So we are on policy 187, public participation at school board meetings. And so the first piece that I wanted to highlight is the first paragraph, the recommendation is to strike that language, not because that language is not something that we follow, it's just, it's duplicated with the policy that we've already updated and approved, and that's policy 171.2, agenda preparation and dissemination. And in that policy, that paragraph is there verbatim, so it feels like this one is more about what happens with the public participation at the actual school board meeting as opposed to preparation for the agenda, which 171.2 covers. So my recommendation is to cut that language, not because we're getting rid of it, but just that it seems to fit better in that policy. So that's the first piece. The second piece, I cut that because I feel like it's covered in other areas in better detail. That's the ask for visitors and delegations as part of each agenda.
It's covered elsewhere?
It's covered because we have a process in the second part of the paragraph where the new language covers that in greater detail. So then the third, which will now become the first paragraph, is just clarifying who is kind of covered under the public participation, and that's residents of the districts, parents or guardian of district students, which may be a little bit bigger than residents of the district because of open enrollment, district students and district staff members. And then the piece there is to address the school board on a topic related to the district. We feel like that's a better representation than just a matter of concern.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
Is there any, so just in comparison to similar types of policies that I am familiar with that through, say, city council
Sure.
or like a board meeting, limiting, so a lot of policies I have seen in the past, rather than say on a topic related to what we do, have limited to a topic on the agenda.
Right.
Was that consideration like talked about and dismissed for a reason, or we wanted to keep
Yeah.
it wider?
So in our practice, we feel like there's 2 pieces with public participation. One is to speak on an agenda topic. The other might to bring something up. Now, when we move to the phase of the agenda, we won't be able to address that, but
Right.
it feels like it's something that it's okay to bring up because it may inform, it may be an opportunity for something to come up that can be directed to support the person that's bringing up to an employee or a staff member. It might inform another agenda item at a future date. So that's why.
Okay.
Yeah, so that, I would say, I believe that's intentional, because it
Yeah.
reflects what our beliefs about public participation at our meetings are about.
That's great, thank you. That was one of the things when I was reviewing it that I knew I wanted to kind of
Yep.
ask about.
I have a couple thoughts on this paragraph too. Do you want to do that, or do you want to go through the whole thing and then go back?
You can speak to this paragraph.
Okay, this paragraph, just a few things. First sentence says may include, so could the school board president, I know we always do, but could the school board president and the superintendent just decide, nope, we're not going to listen to any guests or visitors? Should it say will?
Yeah, I don't have, that was the language.
Oh, this was the language,
Yeah.
yeah, and I know we always do.
And we always do.
We always do,
Yeah.
but could, I mean, people change, whatever. But anyway, so that's just one thing I noticed. And then also, is what's in yellow is new?
That's correct.
So that's new, so it says residents of district, parents or guardians of district students. I'm not so sure we should, I'm just questioning, should we limit it? And one example is, as you guys know, I ran for office last year, state office, and as part of my campaign, I went and introduced myself to all the school districts that are in that assembly district and the city councils and the town boards and whatnot. Just introduction, I'm running for office, I would be your representative for your district if I were to be elected, wanted you to put the face to the name or whatever, And I approached the Hudson School Board and they said, no, you can't come, you can only speak to our board if you're a resident of our school district. And I said, so if I was running for assembly and I was a resident of Hudson, then I could introduce myself, but because I'm not a resident, I can't. So I'm just wondering, should this be a little bit broader?
Yeah.
or more inclusive, why do we have a lot of people who live outside the district who want to come? You know, who want to come and talk to us? Has it been, is there a good reason to limit it?
I get concerned, there are policy discussions or there are matters related to this, you know, to the school that might bring people's attention that aren't part of our community.
Sure, yeah.
And while I
that
respect
happened-
everyone's opinion,
yeah.
I do get concerned about it becoming a place that, for others to state their political beliefs one way or the other, which
Sure.
I think we should very intently listen to for our stakeholders, but I do
Right.
get concerned about it becoming something that it's not designed to do, which is inform the work of the board.
Yeah.
I think that's why. I would defer to the board on how we want to do it. I was relying on policy recommendations to be clarifying this. Our current policy doesn't have that clarification, right? So we wouldn't have, you know, as it sits right now, we wouldn't disallow someone from speaking if they didn't live within our district, because that's not our policy, but that's the recommended update. And I'll defer to the board.
Or if people from the state are coming up and they want to speak to the board, or if, I don't know. I mean, do we have people who come?
Yeah. I think that if in those examples, we can put them on the agenda
Right.
in a different space.
Oh, sure.
They don't have to rely on public comment.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
think that if we opened
Okay.
it up to just anyone, my worry would be if there are voices that are drowning out the voices of our actual stakeholders, taxpayers, residents, parents, you
Well,
know.
it
the
is
people
open
who-
to anyone right now.
Right. But do we worry about that being a potential, like, is the reason that this language is recommended because there is a concern that maybe state level or national level, whatever, could that overtake? And I don't know if that's something to be concerned about or if that's where this comes from. But certainly, I think to your point of giving our connected people certainly that priority. I don't know then if do we say that no one else can, or do we just say that they don't have priority? I don't know.
So a good example would be Jamie Johnson came and spoke to us. It's the exact same scenario. I mean, to me, there's a distinct difference between someone that's running for office to represent your community, even if they don't personally live in the, versus somebody that just doesn't live here and comes and talks one way or the other about a certain topic. To me, that's a pretty distinct difference, someone
I was
that's
trying to
running.
think of examples. Because what you don't want is somebody who's driving across the United States of America, just going to school board meetings every Monday night of their life and ranting about something that they care about. I mean, that they, speaking to something that they care passionately about, whether it's whatever. You don't want that, right?
That's right.
Right, that's what you don't want, but I just was.
A single issue person.
Maybe there's a way to flex the language a little bit, that generally it's residents of the district, but I'm assuming that if there are people, like if someone who's a candidate for state senate or whatever in our area wants to meet and sit in on a board meeting and listen to what our issues are and introduce
I mean,
themselves, why would
that's what
we
we
not?
try to do, is advocate for our
Like, put them on the
district. We
agenda.
want them here.
So can I,
It
could be an agenda item, but it sounds like.
Right.
That's the piece,
Is that what we
yeah,
would do?
I think I think generally agree that piece is important. I think that there's been examples of times when we've had representatives here, and that has been an agenda item.
Exactly.
Based through their own
We've got
agenda
a
item.
special meeting that we.
Yeah. The question is,
Yeah.
did we, that does require some pre-planning, right?
does,
On their end, and
right.
maybe they don't have time to do that.
But I think that that's
Hudson School
fair.
Board would not let me introduce myself at a board meeting.
Because I want to interject here, based on, we did have that happen last spring. That was the one time of all the public comment in my time here where I thought that was not appropriate, to have a candidate for an office addressing the board. That was not, that's not what we do here. We don't do, and the reason I didn't think it was appropriate, because I have a deep concern about the politicization of nonpartisan offices nationally and especially in this state, where we've carved out even a special election month, April, for nonpartisan elections. The increasing encroachment and money partisan encroachment and money on those elections, I think I would rather err on the side of keeping them out of this. Now, if a state senator, elected representative, or someone who is a current office holder wants to come and address us on behalf of them and their office, but when the candidates, because it could be any party, it could be anything, so when you say, are we worried about this? I would say, I'm worried about this.
You're worried about candidates introducing themselves to
I'm
the
worried
board?
about candidates coming and making statements in front of the board that aren't here. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
So we should probably talk about this more, because it's also, and then I would say just FYI too, I ran into a lot of different policies on this in my wanderings. And the city council in Hudson has an interesting policy. So you have to live there, to address the city council, you have to be a resident of the city of Hudson. You may not address them if you're not. And you may not speak to them about anything that's on the agenda. You may only speak to them, now, and I thought, I read this backwards. I'm like, I'm reading this backwards. You may only speak to them about things that are not on the agenda. If you have a concern about something on the agenda, you are to email your representative on the city council directly and inform them of your concern. And they will carry your voice forward. You may not. I thought that was interesting.
So just this past week, I had a staff member ask me, is it okay for me to address the board since I don't live in River Falls, but I'm a staff member? So the answer to that, according to this, is yes. So
Currently,
I
yes,
think.
because we don't have anything eliminated.
Correct.
If this were approved, it would still be.
But I think that it's important to identify that so that people know that they're welcome to do this within our parameters. Historically, I can think of a time where a grandparent came and wanted to speak. Now, I imagine, it doesn't say grandparents in here, but we would say that there's a connection to a student. But other than that, I can't.
I would say maybe what we want to do is, this language is probably fine. Others would be at the discretion of the superintendent and the board chair, or something like that. I don't know. And maybe the political candidate things is another whole conversation.
Well,
You know,
can
personally-
I ask a question regarding that? Because the way that I am reading and interpreting this, addressing the school board on a topic related to the district, that statement right there would probably exclude a political candidacy in the sense that
One could
we've
argue
kind of,
that,
is that related to the district or to the work? I don't know. So what is,
Electing the person who's going to approve your budget.
no, I mean,
It would depend on what the office
Yeah.
is.
right. I mean, so
Yeah.
maybe, I mean, I don't know, because I guess I read that way, but
We could say, we could put a caveat in there. At the discretion of the superintendent, the board chair.
you know, in
Yeah.
which
I mean,
case some
we
of those
can-
could be.
I think that's one
that.
idea. I
other-
get worried about that because
then we have to
wanna
put in those
be-
decisions. We
Right,
wanna
I
be
don't want
fair.
to place
Right, right.
Yeah.
one way or the
Or,
other.
you know, and maybe it's a broader discussion, because I don't necessarily agree with what you're saying, Alan. I think having a political candidate introduce themselves, say, hey, I'll use Jamie as an example since he was here. I'm running for judge. I'm here sitting in your meeting. I want to understand what issues you're facing. You know, you may introduce yourself, period. You may not make a speech or anything like that. Or not. I mean, or do we, the majority of us, think it's inappropriate?
I just don't think that's business. Our business, I mean, we take, and so we did during COVID, tons of public comment from people in our district, and we want to hear it. They're the ones who own the district and support the district and those kinds of things. I get a little concerned. I've been very uncomfortable in the last recent years with the partisan people. And so I might even say it would be fine if there were people running for nonpartisan offices, maybe could come and address us.
Which Jamie was.
But yes, but it still made me comfortable, because I think that we didn't have guidelines for that. So maybe the conversation for what can you say if you do that. But I'm a little concerned about opening up. Are we worried about it? Has it ever happened in the past? It's very rare. I just don't want to get it started, because if it ever got started, it'd be hard to rein in.
So what I'm hearing is,
We have
there's two things I've heard, and we don't have to vote on it. Like, this is why we have these conversations.
Yep, this is the place to do it.
Yeah,
This is
so,
the time, so.
the first thing is there a specific carve-out, or should we look at language that there's a carve-out around candidates for office that cover the school district area? Like, is that is that a separate carve out that we would say that they would have some ability to? I'm hearing people say that, and I'm also saying some level of discretion to maybe not box ourselves in if there's somebody that we felt, hey, they showed up, it makes sense that they would go. I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily excited about that one because that puts a lot of
That-
pressure on
Not either. I'm not
the board
It's
chair and
hard-
the superintendent.
It's hard to be able to be
Oh, on the spot, it's
Just-
much easier to say, hey, do you fit into one of these buckets or not? And if you
I
don't,
think you have
then-
to either, say, political candidates are not allowed to address the board, period, across the board. Or you have to say, political candidates are allowed to introduce themselves and sit in on a board meeting if they're interested. Because otherwise, with the language the way it is, I could introduce myself to the River Falls School Board, but.
Because you're a resident.
Because I'm a resident.
A resident of River Falls,
But someone who, from Hudson could not, like what happened to me, which Hudson, and I'm just using this as an example. Hudson School Board said, no, you can't. But I said, if I lived in Hudson, you would allow it. Yes. So I knew that's not right,
Okay.
right?
So we can, I'll
Yeah.
do a little research.
So maybe one way or the other.
What is the intent of having public comment? I think that's what it comes down to, is,
Yeah.
because districts are not required to put a public comment item on the agenda, ever.
And you don't have
If
to.
the board wants to
right.
choose to never have public comment, you don't have to do that by law. I think we open it up because there is an intent. So what is the board's intent? Is it to gather information and allow someone to speak so that you're more informed about something related to the district? And that's what I read here, a topic related to the district. So to just say we're a board, a meeting that open up and you can come and anybody can talk about anything across the country or across our state even, seems like that's not really maybe
Right.
the intent of a public comment in a board meeting. So I
There's
Just had to
also
say that.
something about that it's the chance for the community, for the
Yes.
people who elected us, to
Creating
be
that
able
forum.
to speak to us.
Right.
And
Yep.
I think we've done a really careful job of protecting that time and allowing people to feel welcome and,
But I
you know,
think
within some
I would be
parameters.
interested in, David, through your connections, what do other districts do? Yeah, I'd be curious.
This.
Yes, okay. But I wonder what other districts do with political candidates. Not that we have tons of people coming in here to
Sure.
introduce them, we don't.
I can do a little research on
But
that.
I'm just curious.
But
if they-
almost every policy that I reviewed, and the recommendation, this time we're working with WASB, was to qualify with this.
Yeah,
So,
okay, yeah. I don't think this is bad language.
Yeah.
I'm just saying maybe there should be a caveat in
Yeah.
there.
I think we should leave this language and then we can decide if we want to be specific
A little
about.
bit more.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
but
do a little
I think
homework
that
on
this is,
Yep.
I think that this is appropriate language for us.
Okay, so moving on,
Oh, and then, can we say one thing?
Yeah.
And then, so I think in recognition of Lynette's comment that it's not, that public comment is not required at every single meeting, I think it makes sense to keep may, not that we are going to intend to abuse that, but it gives this board and a future board the ability to be able to say, just this time, for whatever reason, we're not going to have it. If it says that we have to, then there's no flexibility.
Yeah.
Does it make sense to have anything then in there, to Lynette's comment about saying the purpose for public comment is to provide our constituents or whatever we want to say, like a forum for, you know.
I think we try to, in
Okay.
a light way, we try to address that in the last sentence, right?
Sure.
Allotted a specified, thank you, amount of time to address the school board on a topic related to the district. Maybe that's not, I don't know,
Well, it's
best
going
way
to
to say that,
move
but it's
up.
pretty clear. It's pretty clear that that's the most.
And I think your A
And that's
through
going to
G are
become the
really
first
good.
paragraph, so it won't feel buried.
Okay, so I'm hearing, I guess my question for the board, maybe let's keep talking, and if
Yeah.
there's more roadblocks, then that drives us one way versus another way. So the next paragraph is really adjusting the language on how we set the time. Before, the board president was responsible for allotting the time that a visitor delegation could have. And that was a max of 5 minutes, and we had set it at 2 minutes pretty regularly since the time that I've been here. And I feel like that fit with the language, but I also feel like it's a little confusing language. I think it would make more sense if our vision is that it's going to be 2 minutes, that we say the allotted time will be no more than 2 minutes, unless the time is increased by a majority vote. So maybe the board on a specific night where there's a specific agenda item that we feel like, hey, we want to give public participation a little more depth of time, that we can make it. But generally speaking, our general practice is 2 minutes. That's what that was about. So I wanted to stop there and make sure that that's what the board is comfortable with adjusting to. Okay. And then really the yellow is designed to put into policy actions procedurally that we've worked on quite a bit in the time that I've been here. And so it guides the person who is presiding over the meeting, most often the school board president, with some specific procedural expectations. They'll be permitted, as indicated on the meeting agenda, so it's at that point. I think that's important to recognize. That's the point where the public participation takes place. And then the meeting continues with the rest of the agenda. We've talked at length about this piece. There's an expectation, which I think normally we've kind of done pretty well, of what the topic is, who the person is, and what their affiliation is. And so most often in practice here, it's been an individual who's presenting, but sometimes we'll see that group piece, so I think that was important to have that there.
Yep.
No participant may speak on more than once, and then all statements will be directed to the school board. No person may address or question an individual school board member or staff individually. It doesn't mean that there aren't topics that are gonna come up that those pieces may be alluded to, but I think directing it towards the board is the appropriate forum.
Yep.
And then there's some ways that the board president or the presiding officer can intervene, and I think those are important to put into policy. Specifically number 3 there, to call a recess or an adjournment to another time, if we're at a space where that section of the agenda is no longer productive. Again, not something that, even through a lot of meetings with a lot of topics, that really isn't something that we've had to worry about. Even if it hasn't been exactly smooth, we've been able to continue it without having to do that. And then the last item.
With these rules.
And the last item there is that, and this is one that's pretty common, it's that portion of the meeting would be limited to 30 minutes unless extended by vote. So that's another one.
By a majority vote.
By a majority vote, yeah.
So another question, so where you say participants, residents, blah, 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 must register their intention to participate in the hearing.
Yep.
Do we have a
Yeah.
people, do they sign?
We're starting to, we've been,
Getting a sign?
yeah, we're moving
Okay.
towards that.
Because
That is
that's
not
what city
something-
council does.
That's not something in practice that we've done here.
Okay, and the county does it too, and then I believe they incorporate that into their minutes. Joe Blow spoke to the.
This is going to be much easier for Amanda because she's got the names written right here.
No, how do you know? But there's another David Bell in town, I met him.
Yeah. Good guy too.
So, he's a very good guy. Yeah. Yeah, he's a very wonderful person. So they would register in and then it would go into the minutes. Do we do that now? Is it in the minutes?
We don't name names in the minutes. We do.
But we do ask people to
Community member.
introduce themselves, and that's not in here. They're registering, but it doesn't also say people, anyone, does it?
It doesn't see.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, but this,
Okay, great.
So
you
is,
done, Allison? I don't
Yep,
wanna-
I'm done.
Hold on, because I had a question about letter B too. So this says that they can register their intention to participate upon their arrival at the meeting. So if they arrive 10 minutes into our meeting and we're in the middle of public comment and they wish to,
That's a good question.
will they be able to then still sign up? Just because I think that's important to clarify, because that
That's a good
has
question.
happened in the
You
past.
can at the county.
as long as we're still in public comment.
Correct, right,
Yeah,
correct.
I think that because I would hate to, you're here at
Yeah.
6:01.
Right.
And we're gonna
Take the
say
sheet,
no.
yeah,
I think that
right.
we want to be welcoming. and- So as long as it's in the course of public comment time.
They would be able to sign up.
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
Two things. One is, I like the very last one, it says 30 minutes or less extended by a vote of the school board. And I keep coming back to COVID, boy. It was hours. We took public comment for hours Monday night after Monday night. It was helpful and fatiguing at the same time. But anyway, I think 30 minutes probably, but if it's really hot and there's good stuff going on, we have the
So
right to do it.
if you were in a situation, then the president would say, okay, we've hit the 30-minute mark. Is there a majority of the board that wants to continue to take public comment? And you would vote or whatever.
It would, I'm wondering if we want to reconsider G. And my thinking about that is, it hasn't happened very often, but if it does happen, in theory, there could still be people who are waiting to address the board, and the board could say, no, we're not going to listen to you. Is that what we want? It seems.
It's a good point. Maybe it should be read the other way. The board could vote, a majority of the vote could vote to stop.
To shut it down. I don't know.
I think you have two, my recommendation is you have two options. You have this option, which is pretty common,
Okay,
or you just leave it wide open.
and we don't say it
Yeah,
either way.
and then you run the risk of a very, very long meeting. Now, you have some qualifiers in there that would help you. The first one is no participant may speak more than once, so you wouldn't get into a filibuster situation.
And they can only speak 2 minutes.
And then the second piece is that you can call for a recess in items, in number 3 there, so, but it does say when a lack of decorum, so if everybody's, but I guess that's the question for the board, if everybody is following a
If they're following the rules,
and it ends up being an issue where there's that much to talk about,
Yeah.
I'm reluctant to make the suggestion that we're going to limit it.
I would agree.
so we're gonna
So
strike
let's
that.
just take G out, because we don't,
So my other comment on this, when I started to read it today, and I don't have edits for this, but when I read it, I read this as public comment for regular board meetings. And I tried to read it as public comment for committee meetings. And I'm not sure it's that clear. So as you read through this, when I'm chairing ed programs, or Mike's chairing his committee,
Interesting, because I
does
also read it
the
as
same
public.
thing apply? It kind of
Yeah.
does, but we constantly refer to board president
take
or
that out.
presiding, or
let's just put the presiding officer, because that covers whoever happens to be chairing.
well, we may want to make
Right.
some statement up here earlier about regular board meetings. This applies to regular board meetings and committee meetings or special meetings.
Well, any
Or
meeting
I
at
like
which
your
meeting
idea,
is-
just say presiding
Yeah, I
presiding.
think you would say presiding officer.
Yeah, so there's two questions that two points that you're making. One is to just have it be presiding officer at all areas when it's who's leading it.
Yeah.
And then the other piece is to include that this policy also covers committee meetings, right? Okay.
Do we need to say official board meetings or something like that? Because we do ad hoc things like a strategic planning meeting or something. Does that get run the same way?
If
That's
it's
not a school board meeting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if it's a meeting of the board and it's posted.
Yep.
And we create an agenda, most often we would have and it's an open meeting, it's subject to those rules, then we would, our general practice is we have a public comment section.
And you could, just in that first paragraph, I don't want to wordsmith, but the school board president and superintendent or the presiding official of any school district meeting could do whatever they are. Because I'm thinking back to when we had a big meeting about where the new high school should go. And it was huge. The gym was full of people, and the superintendent was presiding over that meeting. And there were things that, started to get out of hand. This would apply to something like that, a community-wide meeting about anything that's
But that
sponsored
would
by
be
the school
posted.
district.
Would that be posted? Might
Well,
not
if it's
be.
a special meeting of the board, it'd be
Yeah.
posted.
That sounds like a forum,
That's,
A forum.
which is
Yeah.
I think a little bit different than what this policy covers. In my opinion,
Well,
doesn't mean
it
that we
was,
wouldn't
it
follow
was
it.
posted, the whole school board was there, so.
Yeah, it would have to have been posted, yeah.
but we can just adjust that first sentence to
Yep.
Under
make
other
it applicable to
Mhm.
any school board meeting,
Yep.
committee
Okay.
meeting, okay?
So I'm gonna review the things that we're going to adjust, and then you all can tell me if we feel like that's a large enough adjustment where we wanna come back for a first read. I think that's the play, but I just wanna make sure we're clear. One is to make sure that we're clear that this covers not just regular school board meetings, but also committee meetings, special board meetings, other types of official board interactions. Adjusting where it says school board president to be more general to presiding officer, because that is more indicative of whoever is leading the meeting will follow these policies or rules. We have to make some recommendations around if we're going to limit legislative candidates. I think we were pretty clear that that would be the only carve out. Everyone else is covered in the yellow there. So I'll come back with recommendations on that. In item B below, we're gonna clarify that it is upon their arrival at the meeting as long as we're still in the public comment section. So in other words, if someone showed up now, they wouldn't have that opportunity, but if they showed up during public comment, they could. And we're striking G. So I will make those adjustments and we'll come back for a first read next month.
Perfect.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Sorry.
221.
All right, this one is less wordy.
And fewer changes.
Recruitment and appointment of superintendent. This is really just updating the language to match some statutory expectations. And hopefully not anything we have to do anytime soon.
That's right.
That's absolutely right.
Can we move on to the next one?
Yep, any questions?
The next one is development opportunities. A couple of add-ons here, even since you grabbed this. Just so,
okay.
So I think your language in your packet should have, in the last sentence, administrator attendance at such meetings must be approved in advance by the superintendent.
Yes.
We have that.
Yep, you guys have
Yeah,
that.
sorry,
I think-
that's just-
no,
Oh, I
that
see.
was
The
my fault.
one, got it.
When she made this, it wasn't there. And then the same thing in the third paragraph. You're still on 221. You gotta go to
She's on the wrong
Oh.
one.
That's my fault.
Oh, sorry,
223.
I wasn't,
Nope, that's me again.
That's not,
You. Can you go back? Nope, don't touch that.
There.
That's why, it was there, you did have it. We're-
I'm not sure I have
Two
that.
twenty-three.
Yep, we do.
I was like, this didn't look.
Okay, and then the other thing is
Yep.
just, when we talk about reimbursement, that it's aligned to policy 671.2 expense reimbursements. So, that's it.
any questions about that one? All right, so then at this point, is there a motion to approve? We're going to do numbers 2 and 3 together. So a motion to approve the first reading of revised school board policy 221, recruitment and appointment of the superintendent, as well as the first reading of revised school board policy 223, administrator development opportunities. Is there a motion, please?
So moved. Second.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Ellen. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you for your work, and then we will bring back the 187 next time. All right, now we have some second readings in front of us. The good news is these have not changed since we adopted the first readings. We've gone through them carefully last time. There are no changes. Does anybody have anything that they would like to bring up? If not, we're going to move on to second reading and approval. Anything? Okay, at this point, is there a motion to approve the second reading of revised school board policy 352, the exhibit, which is the application for sanction of school-sponsored trips? The second reading of revised school board policy 672, purchasing. The second reading of revised school board policy 823, access to public records. The second reading of revised school board policy 823, rule, and this is the procedure for access to public records. And then the second reading of revised school board policy 823, the exhibit for public record notice.
So moved.
Thank you, Monica. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Allison. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. Do we have any proposed items for future board meeting agendas? I will say that one of the issues that is coming before the board is we are going to have a discussion around our procedures for student behavior and discipline. One of the things that we're waiting for on that is that the student surveys are going to go out, so that'll give us some additional data points. It's also a pretty significant presentation for the administration to put in front of the board, and so we're going to wait until after the school year has passed. We'll have more data, more time. So that's coming up. Anything else?
That policy we were just talking about should.
Yep, that'll come back. Yep, we got that going. All right, we're going to schedule next meetings. So the board reorganizational meeting will be Monday, April 28th at 6 o'clock. Educational Program Committee will meet Monday, May 5th at 6. Finance and Facilities will meet Monday, May 12th at 6. Personnel will meet Monday, May 12th at 7 o'clock or immediately following Finance and Facilities. The next regular board meeting will be Monday, May 19th at 6 o'clock. There will be a school board retreat on Monday, June 23rd at 5 o'clock. All of those meetings will be held here at the district office, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you, everybody.